greatest grudge fights in history. And now here is your host in our HBO studios in New York, Barry Tompkins.
Hello, everybody. I'm Barry Tompkins, and welcome to Boxing's Best. Over the next hour, we're going to be talking about grudge fights. Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier will join us right here on our HBO studios to talk about their three great fights. We'll talk about Lewis and Schmelling, Pep and Sadler, Graziano and Zale, and a whole lot more than that. With us is our resident boxing expert here at HBO, Larry Merchant. And Larry, let me ask you simply, what makes a grudge fight?
I suppose a broad definition would be that aside from the fact that the two men are trying to knock each other's heads off, they don't like each other. I'm brought back to my favorite grudge fight of all time in Philadelphia years ago when one bricklayer said to another bricklayer on the job, "You're a lousy bricklayer." A local club fight promoter heard about it, put them in the ring for 4 rounds, caused a sensation. Well, the grudge fights we're going to look at today are that kind of thing writ large.
You know, I have talked to countless professional fighters about that very thing. Do you really dislike the other guy? Do you have to build up an intense hate? They always say, no, I have a great deal of respect. I really like the guy a lot. And yet that is obviously not true.
Well, there is always a mutual respect in the ring because nobody knows what the pain is of going through a prize fight except the fighters. But obviously personal feelings do enter into it on many occasions. Ali and Frazier was a perfect example of a conflict in styles and personalities. It's a battle over turf, championships, neighborhood championships, whatever. It may be a battle over money. One guy's getting more money than the other guy, and the other guy doesn't like it. It could be almost anything like that. Roberto Duran, he made a grudge fight of every fight because he had to work himself up for that. I think we should remember that compared to other sports, any fight is a grudge fight.
Well, maybe the first big money grudge fight took place after World War I. Jack Dempsey was the champion. He had defended only 5 times, and he had to literally be talked into the ring with a promise of a $475,000 guarantee to fight a popular light heavyweight champion by the name of Gene Tunney.
September 23rd, 1926. After 3 years of idleness, Jack Dempsey defended his heavyweight crown against a tough ex-Marine named Gene Tunney. The 31-year-old Manasseh Moeller was in poor physical condition, having arrived for the fight sick to his stomach. Dempsey's handlers wanted the fight called off, but 120,000 fans gathered in Philadelphia to see Gene Tunney put an end to Dempsey's glorious reign.
Champion Jack Dempsey to the right has been after Gene Tunney relentlessly. Here in the 10th and final round, Gene continues to outspeed, outbox, and outmaneuver the ever-dangerous Manasseh Moeller. At the end of this final round, the slick-boxing Tunney takes a unanimous decision.
After the fight, Dempsey announced his retirement. Jack's manager, Gene Normeal, claimed his fighter was poisoned. Tunney called the charges trash. Then in 1927, Tex Rickard convinced Jack Dempsey to avenge his bitter loss. 1 year later, the most controversial battle in boxing history was about to unfold. The gate amounted to $2.6 million, with Tunney's share reaching $1 million. On September 22nd, 1927, over 100,000 fans at Soldiers Field in Chicago witnessed the legendary long count.
Dempsey opens up, catching Tunney with his potent right hand, followed by a series of 7 devastating punches. Tunney goes down for the first time in his career. Dempsey stays near the fallen fighter. Referee Dave Barry waits for Jack to move to a neutral corner before he starts the count of 1. Is Tunney dazed or wisely taking full advantage of those precious extra seconds to recover? Tunney gets on his bicycle, trying to stay away from the rampaging Dempsey. The Manasseh Moeller wants his title back. Dempsey throwing punches from all angles. Tunney backpedaling, trying to clear the cobweb.
After the fight, controversy raged over the long count. Some ringsiders counted Tunney on the canvas for 18 seconds. We may never know if Tunney could have risen in time. Jack Dempsey said he didn't think so. In round 8, Dempsey was dropped from an overhand right. He was a beaten fighter. At the age of 32, Jack Dempsey knew the time had come for him to retire. Tex Rickard tried to make a third Dempsey-Tunney match, but it wasn't to be. 9 years later, the newest sensation of the heavyweight division was Joe Louis. On June 19, 1936, an overconfident Louis faced former champion Max Schmelling. There were demonstrations by Jewish organizations claiming Schmelling represented Nazi Germany. As the world drifted into war, the boxing arena became a political battleground.
During the first 3 rounds, neither man got into serious trouble. Here in round 4, it's still anybody's fight. A ripping right by Max Schmelling. Lewis is in trouble. Another dynamite right. Lewis goes down. The referee, Arthur Donovan, signals Max to go to a neutral corner. Joe's up on his feet, but it's all Max here in round 4. Max kept pouring it on for the next 8 rounds, and Joe was in trouble throughout. Joe is still on his feet here in the 12th round, but Max is all over the brown bomber. A ripping right to the jaw by Max Schmelling. Crushing punches by Max. Joe is in desperate trouble here in the 12th. A dynamite right, and Lewis goes down.
The fight was stopped, and Joe Louis had been beaten for the first time as a pro. 1 year later, Louis went on to win the heavyweight title from James J. Braddock, but the loss to Schmelling still haunted him. 2 years later, heavyweight champion Joe Louis signed to fight Max Schmelling. By this time, the world was at war, and word was spreading of concentration camps in Germany. Jewish committees threatened the promoter Jim Jacobs. Only when Jacobs convinced them that Joe would vindicate all of the gross conduct in Germany did the signing take place.
I'm going to be in the best of shape, and I'm sure they're going to be a very good fight.
I'm happy that I have the chance again to fight for the title, and I hope the best man may win.
Even though both fighters tried to keep the fight in the ring, Max Schmelling's identification with Nazi Germany spearheaded an avalanche of abuse. Stories circulated with Max claiming he belonged to the superior race. Celebrated American heroes like Jack Dempsey were brought in to spar with the former champion, but Max could not escape his heritage. Schmelling's trainer, Max Macken, was rumored to be strutting around the training camp in a Nazi uniform. Never before had a prize fight been caught in a political line of fire. The United States rallied around their worshipped heavyweight champion. Joe Louis was invited to the White House, where President Roosevelt told him, "Joe, we're depending on those muscles for America." Promoter Jim Jacobs warned the Brown Bomber that if he didn't beat Max Schmelling, both of their careers were over. Joe received $350,000 for this, his 4th title defense. But clearly money was of little consequence. Joe said he was scared he was going to kill Max in the ring. Joe Louis was not only defending his heavyweight crown, he was protecting the values of American society. On June 22nd, 1938, 70,000 fans in Yankee Stadium and millions of people all over the world awaited a battle between 2 fighters and 2 ways of life.
This is the feature attraction. 15 rounds for the World's Heavyweight Championship. Weighing 193, wearing purple trunks, outstanding contender for heavyweight honors, the former heavyweight title holder, Max Schmelling. Weighing 198 3/4, wearing black trunks, the famous Detroit Brown Bomber, world's heavyweight champion, Joe Louis.
The entire world is waiting for the result of this enormously publicized heavyweight championship fight. We're moments away from the opening bell. Joe Louis, heavyweight champion of the world, comes out for round 1 in the dark trunks with the white stripe. Max Schmelling is wearing the all-dark trunks. Since winning the world heavyweight title, Joe has defended it 3 times. In his last defense of the title 10 months ago, Joe KO'd Harry Thomas in the 5th round. Max Schmelling won the heavyweight championship of the world in June of 1930, 8 years ago, from Jack Sharkey. Max was awarded the fight on a foul when he was hit low by a blow thrown by Sharkey. Schmelling lost a close, tough 15-round decision to Sharkey and lost the world heavyweight title 2 years later. Max is attempting to become the first former heavyweight champion ever to regain the precious title. 6 other champions have tried and failed. Champion Joe Louis wants this victory desperately. Joe is deadly serious in there. An explosive right to the jaw hurts Max Schmelling. Joe Louis all over Max Schmelling here in round 1. Ripping punches to the head. Joe steps back. A dynamite right to the jaw, and Schmelling goes down here in the first round. Max is up at the count of 2. Louis moves in. Ripping punches by the Brown Bomber send Schmelling down again. A crushing right explodes off Schmelling's jaw, and Max goes down for the 3rd time. It doesn't look like Schmelling's going to make it. It's all over.
Joe Louis shocked the world with his first-round knockout of Max Schmelling. The Germans had cut the radio broadcast of the fight when Max began to go down. As the world drifted into World War II, Joe Louis had established himself as one of the greatest heavyweight champions of all time.
Joe Louis and Max Schmelling probably epitomizes the phrase grudge fight. But it was really much more, Larry, than just 2 guys who didn't particularly like each other in the ring.
Well, of course, Joe Louis had reason enough to want to destroy Schmelling. Schmelling had knocked him out in their previous fight. But there were extraneous events. Events domestically, we were in a depression, and events internationally. Hitler was menacing us and talking about a master race. And, of course, Joe Louis became the focus of all American rage, and he took it out on Schmelling.
There, of course, was no nationalism involved in another great grudge fight series, and that was between Tony Zale and Rocky Grazie.